Alright guys, so I saw this video from British Vader.
So there's this new zealot strategy where you take a bow and then you sword swap and then you one shot the zealots in a half. Oh god, I need to do this. Wait. That failed.
And I decided to make a quick little script that will do exactly the same, wherein you take your bow out and you shoot, and it'll automatically swap to the sword once it's toggled on. There you go, shoot, and automatic switch to sword. And I'm going to be showing you guys how I managed to achieve that, and I will put the script down in the description below, just so that it's easier for you guys to see how it works. So every time I click the bow, every time I release the bow, sorry, it automatically switches to the sword automatically, with very little effort. I'm not pressing the keyboard or anything, it's just doing that on its own. Right, so you go into your text file editor, you create a new text file. I called mine bow switch because that's what it does. You shoot the bow, it switches to the sword. I'm going to set one variable first, which is the type of sword that you're using, to a string variable. So this is diamond swords, but if you're using a different sword like golden sword or something, you'd want to put that in there. Next, you want the amount of time that you spend holding the sword. So, for example, it's set to 1000. So, after shooting, it will hold the sword for 1 second and then switch back to the bow. So, to toggle a global Boolean variable, we will be creating a do loop with a while end over here. And this will do something while this is true. For example, here, I will log, for example, the right mouse button. So you will be able to see if the right mouse button is being clicked or not. Button is being clicked or not. So right now it's false. When I click the arrow, it's true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. And we want to detect when it goes from true, as it is now, to false now. So we want that little specific amount of time where it switches between true to false. Right, so I'm going to head back into the script and do that. So we want to know whether or not the button is pressed. So we are going to assign a Boolean value, pressed, to the right mouse button, so R mouse. So now this variable will, in this loop, will represent the right mouse button, whether it's pressed or not. So it's a true or false value. And we will check if that value, so if for example pressed, so if it's pressed, for example, equals 1, that means that it's true. And we want to check if it changes from true to false. So now that we know it's true, we want to be able to check whether the previous value was false. Now, to be able to get the previous value, at the bottom of the script, since this is a loop, we will set a before variable to pressed. Or you could do set before false, like that. It's the same. And so we want to check if you go from true to false. So if this is true, so you want the pressed to be 0 and the before to be 1. So you want it to, basically you want this to be false, so the newer value to be false and the older value to be true, because you're going from old to, so if before it was true and after it's false, then we're going to say that we've shot the bow. So I'm going to close this, switch, there we go. So now I right click, hold back the bow, and let go, and it goes shoot. So now we can detect whether you've shot or not. So now we have a specific part of the code here of things we can do while the bow is being shot. So while the bow is being shot, what we want to do is when the bow is shot, you want to switch to the sword. So what we'll do is basically get the item at the current inventory slot. We want to make sure that you have a bow in your hand, because this would work with any other tool otherwise. And to be able to check if it is a bow, we're going to just put a little condition in here, if the item is bow, and go down here and end that if. Alright, so now if it's a bow, let's grab the slot of the sword. So we'll go through the inventory and try and look for this sword that we set up at the top. And we'll put that slot inside the sword slot variable here, which is just a little box that contains a number, and that number represents the slot that you're looking at. And we will then move over to that slot, the sword with a sword, and wait for a certain amount of time, which is the amount of sword time that we set at the top in milliseconds. Alright, next up, you just want to switch back to the bow the same way you did with these two. Well, you're going to do the same down here with the bow, so you're going to get slot with the bow and change back. And that's about it for now. So we're going to give that a go. Let's go over here and shoot, and make sure that the switch is toggled on. So now it's toggled on up there, it's currently running. You can see that it switches to the sword and automatically back to the bow, like that. So there you go, bow and sword. It instantly, as soon as you let go, switches to the sword. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this mini tutorial. The script will be down in the description below, or the link to the script at least. And yeah, see you guys in the next video.